Hello everyone, welcome back. So now we're going to talk about rendering. So we've got our owl and it is looking kind of fierce and kind of cute at the same time, which I'm enjoying. We are going to break our owl into individual layers. Basically every layer of the owl we want to have a different material on. So basically we'll kind of do like the eye will be a layer on both sides, the inner eye here, the outer eye, the eyebrows, all of that. So the way we do that is we break our owl into separate pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the owl, and I'll pull up my layers tab over here, and I will explode the owl. So you can either type explode, or under our standard panel here, it should have the explode right there. And that breaks it all into pieces. And I start off with the biggest pieces that I want to do, which will be this portion right here. And I'm going to call it owl body. So I'm going to click over here on layer 2 slowly so that it changes. And I can type in owl body, enter. And then click here and right click and change object layers. And I believe if you have a Mac, it might say something else to change the object layer, but it'll be in the same spot. So change object layer and boom. And then if I put it back in shaded here, you'll see now it's purple, and that helps us to kind of see it. And usually with the layers that I'm dealing with, I like to turn them off at that time. And I don't like the grid being where it is. So I'm going to change that C plane. So go up to C planes here and go to world top, and that just changes our grid real quick. So you might not have that issue. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, and I'm actually going to turn this layer off. So all of the objects that I put on that layer will go to will be off. So for example, I want to do this little ridge here. So, and I can, as I'm going here, actually join these all back together again that are going to be on the same layer, or I can wait and do that at the end. And you don't want to miss anything. But that's why we turn it off, so that anything that's sitting around, you go, oh, that's supposed to be on that layer. And then I'll join it first. Join's right here, or type the word join, and then right click, change object layer. It goes away, and you can see anything that you're missing, like that. This, change object layer. Okay. And then I'm going to call this layer, this will be the next one I do, and this will be the layer, I'll call this owl chest. Slow click, owl chest. And right click, change object layer, changes it to blue, and then I can turn that layer off. And you can see I'm missing this part, change object layer. All right. And I'm gonna join this beak back together, make it a little easier. So just draw a little box like that. I got it all, join it together, call this one owl beak. And off. Then let's do the eyebrows. Join it back together. Browse, change object layer. And this one's white. I find that boring, so I'll bring up, and we'll do lavender. Ah, very nice, lavender. Okay, turn that off. And then we need to add more layers. So I click up here for new layer, and I believe there's a plus sign down on the bottom here if you have a Mac to add a layer. And we'll do owl pupil. Change it to a different color here. Gold. Okay. Hide. And then you ask yourself whether or not you want this to be like a separate color. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you want that to be the same color as the body. That's up to you. But it might actually, for our case scenario here, be kind of cool because I can make this like black or something like that. And it'll almost be like some punk rock eyeliner or something. So I'm going to make this part right here, new layer, owl eye. Change object layer, click here. Ooh, aquamarine. Okay, turn that off. And then this portion, I'm gonna put on another layer, why not? Call it iRim. Magenta. Okay. Hide. New layer. Owl beat. And I'm going to kind of join some of this together right now so I can make it easier. Let's do turquoise. It might have actually been easier to do the feet, but or do the talons first, but I'm already committed here. And of course, I'm just shifting to add to the selection, the way you would in any other program. I might have gotten a little too carried away at the top here. Let's see. Okay, so then one more, call it owl talon. And I'll do orange. So it's nice and contrasted. Okay, join all this together here, and then I'm going to turn that off, turn this one on. And it looks like these are parts of the talon as well. And I'll just change object layer again, move those over there. Otherwise it looks pretty decent. Then I'm going to join all these parts back together. Turn that one off, turn this one back on. Since I just added to that, I'm going to join that onto there too. Turn it off, turn this one on. And so I'm just joining everything back together so that it's all one piece again, because after you explode it, it's a bunch of different surfaces, and this will just make things cleaner and I won't accidentally mess something up. Well, that's all one piece already, but just making sure here. Keep it clean, that's kind of the rule. The cleaner your geometry, the more versatile it will be. Okay, and then I'll turn them all back on. Okay, so now that we have all of our different layers set up, what we're going to do next is kind of stage it a little bit in Rhino so that it's ready to go into Blender and we can get good lighting situations and stuff set up there. So the easiest way to do that, I'm going to first go to a front view here, and I'm going to move my owl to the 0 position on the plane here. So select the whole thing, type move, grab it at the bottom with your snap, just kind of get really close there, make sure we got it. And then I can even just hit 0, enter, and it'll put it right on the 0 spot. And then I'm going to go to a new layer over here. I'm going to call it Studio. And I'll make it a pretty color, like, let's do pink, just for labeling purposes. Most of the colors won't even transfer over to Blender, but it's just visually helpful to make sure you got everything on the right layer. So let's go to a top view here, find our owl, and I'm going to just draw a sub D box. So we did do sub Ds with the beak and stuff like that, so you should be familiar with it. But we're going to use sub D tools up here and go to box. And with the sub D box, I want to have 3x, 3y, and 3z. So click on your x count, hit 3, enter, 3, enter, 3, enter. And then I'm going to start by clicking maybe out here. And then while I've got it clicked, I'm going to hit the perspective window so that I can judge my distances and extrude this up. So 3 different degrees here, and click. And the reason why we're using a sub D is because it's nice and curvy at the back here, right? So, so that, you know, we don't have a sharp edge and you don't have like the perspective that you would for like being in a room. It's more like you've got a studio with a muslin that is draped at with a radius back to it. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start to break off some of these front faces so we can get inside of it pretty easily. So I'm going to click on the face selection here and just delete, delete, delete. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull this edge out. Actually, I might even just delete this, delete this, delete this. It makes the bottom a little bit flatter. You can see that it's not quite perfectly flat there. And that is a little bit irritating, but it's okay. It's not the end of the world. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out this and kind of make this into a little bit more of a studio. So I'm going to go to my edge selector here, double click this edge, hit enter. And then I'm going to use the little extrusion ball here and pull this way. So I'm just kind of creating this kind of a studio. It's a studio that I wish you could build, you know, nice and organically shaped, no real hard edges. All right. And if we look at it in rendered here, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So there's no sharp edges on the walls like this. We don't want that. We want it like this, nice and soft. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is go back into shaded here. And I can see I didn't change the layer here. I want to make sure I do that. So I will first, I've got to exit out of my sub selection tool here. Click that, right click, and change object layer. Now we've got a pink one. And then I actually want to put this up on a pedestal, I think. So I'm going to go to a top view, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle. And I'm going to do it 6 by 6 inches. 6, enter, 6, enter. And I'm going to kind of align it on our object. Eyeballing is close enough for now. Go back to perspective. And then I'm going to move the whole owl. So remember, we've talked in the past about left to right selection box. So if I go from left to right, I only grab those objects versus right to left, I grab everything. Left to right, select, I grab this. And I'm going to move this up 6 inches. Okay. And then I'm going to extrude this down. You can click on the little ball here and go -6, enter. And then, of course, it does give me a hollow, so I've got to cap it. And that'll give me a nice extruded box here. And yes, you can use the extrude tool, but I want you to pay attention to something else here. So if I use this and I just extrude curve 6 inches, oops, not 56, just 6 inches, enter. You see how it doesn't have any subdivisions on it? And when I click on properties, it's called a closed extrusion. That isn't exactly what we want. That might come out a little funky when we get into Blender, and for complicated reasons involving math. But I can always just explode this, join it back together, and that makes us a closed solid poly surface. And that's what we want. We want closed solid poly surface there. Okay, and then I'm going to create a new layer here and call it pedestal. All right, and if I look at it in rendered, we don't have any lighting or anything set up in Blender, so it's probably not gonna look great, but you can kind of see we got an environment, it's all closed out, looking nice. Okay, so now we are ready to go to Blender after we change the name of our objects. Let me delete that curve there. And actually, you might even want to go up to Edit and select Objects, Curves, make sure there are no other curves. It would select anything if there were curves, and then just hit Delete or Backspace to delete it out. And I might even scale this up a little bit. Oh, nah, forget it. It's probably fine. If not, I can always scale it in Blender. It's not a problem. Okay, we are ready to go. The last thing I want to do is actually use a macro and assign this macro to a button up here on standard. So if I go to standard and I right click in the gray area here, I can go to new button here. And in this new button, I can add a couple of lines of Python script. I believe on the Mac version, you actually have to type the word macro and the window will show up very similar to what we're talking about. So macro is the command on the Mac, and it will look something like this. So let's go ahead and right click. Let me see if I edit button, macro 1. Okay, so this is I've already made the button here, and I'll include this script in the comments on the YouTube page so that you'll have this script you can copy and paste into here. So this is just going to actually rename the objects based on their layer titles. So the actual geometry will have a name, and it's not just related to the layers. This is going to be nice and clean for Blender and other programs in the future. So you'll see what I'm talking about. So when I'm doing this, and I'll just copy and paste this and redo it again here, copy here, cancel, right click, or type macro if you have a Mac, new button, and then I can edit this and I can just make it whatever I want. I can say, hey, I'm just gonna draw something like a smiley face. Oh, I can't even, what's going on? And then go okay. And then all you gotta do is paste and hit okay. And that is now the button. And if I click that button, it'll run that Python script in the command line. So if I click it, it basically just renamed that object. Let me see if I undo it. Can I undo it? I don't know. All right, because what I want to show you is in the properties, viewport properties. If I click on this object, the name of it's blank, but watch when I hit this. It changes it to owl body. And when you have a lot of objects, yes, you can just type in each one, that's not a problem. But if for every single layer now, it's renamed it based on our layer name. So that makes things nice and clean. So make a little button up there, and that'll work for you. So let me edit buttons. Delete. Okay. Don't need it. All right. So next step, download Blender 3.0. And basically it's open source software. So we just go Blender 3.0. and download it. All right. Fun fact for those of you with M1 Macs, Apple just gave Blender not that long ago millions and millions of dollars, which is a sign of their getting more and more into 3D design, finally. And Rhino 8.0, I believe, is going to be the one that actually works really well with Mac, M1 Macs and M1 just MacBooks in general. But Blender works really, really well with the new Macs. And that's also a sign that they're getting into VR design and stuff like that. So download Blender for your operating system. Mac people download the Mac, and PC people download the PC. Once it's downloaded, we will get into Blender.